Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into this whole open source AI thing. And yeah, specifically why Meta's decision to share its Llama model is causing such a stir. We've got a ton of stuff to unpack, tech articles, company statements, even some expert analysis. It's going to be a fascinating look at how open source AI could really shake things up, especially when it comes to national security.
Yeah, it's definitely making waves. What I find really interesting is that we're not just talking about some far-off future here. We're already seeing open source AI models like this Llama thing being used by government agencies. It really raises a lot of questions about how this technology will be used and, what it means for the global balance of power.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. For anyone who might not be totally familiar with all this, Mia, could you explain what open source AI is, like in plain English, no jargon, and how does it differ from those closed AI models like ChatGPT that we've all been hearing so much about?
All right, imagine a car engine. A closed AI model like ChatGPT is like a sleek, modern car. You can drive it, enjoy the ride, but you can't pop the hood and see how it works. Open source AI, on the other hand, it's like having the blueprints and the tools to build and even modify your own engine. You can see every single part, understand how it functions, and even tweak it to create something totally new.
So instead of just interacting with the AI, with open source, you can actually see the code, understand the algorithms, and even change them. That sounds incredibly powerful, but also a bit intimidating, to be honest.
It is powerful, and it's that accessibility that makes open source AI so transformative. It allows for a level of collaboration and innovation that you just don't get with those closed models. Anyone can access the code, individual researchers, government agencies, anyone experiment with it and contribute to its development.
Speaking of government agencies, that brings us to Meta's, well, surprising move, I guess you could call it. They went from completely prohibiting any military use of their AI to actively partnering with the US government, specifically on national security stuff. They've even teamed up with major tech companies like Accenture, AWS, and Microsoft to make Llama available to government agencies and contractors. What's behind this sudden change of heart?
Well, Meta's argument is that by making Llama accessible to U.S. government agencies, they can help America stay ahead in the global AI race, maintain that technological edge. Meta's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, even said that open source development is catching up to closed models in terms of capability.
So they're betting that by embracing open source, they can fuel American innovation and ensure that the U.S. stays at the forefront of AI development. It sounds like a pretty strategic move with potentially huge implications for national security, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a bold move by Meta, no doubt about it, and it's sparked a lot of debate in the tech community and beyond. Some people argue it's a risky move, making powerful AI tech available to, well, anyone, really. Who knows who might misuse it? But others see it as a necessary step to make sure the U.S. stays competitive in this crazy, fast-evolving field of AI.
So let's dive into some real world examples of all this. How is Llama actually being used by government agencies today? I'm picturing some pretty high tech, futuristic scenarios.
Well, you're not far off. For instance, Oracle is using Llama to synthesize and summarize aircraft maintenance documents. This could streamline the whole process, maybe even reduce repair times for those critical aircraft. Imagine the impact that could have on military readiness and operational efficiency.
That's pretty impressive. And from what I've read, Scale AI is also using Llama. They're customizing it to help with things like mission planning and even identifying vulnerabilities in adversary systems, which sounds like something straight out of a spy thriller.
Right, and then you have Lockheed Martin, one of the biggest defense contractors out there, incorporating Llama into its AI factory. They're using it to accelerate code generation, data analysis, even improve some of their business processes.
Yeah.
These are just a few examples of how Llama is already being integrated into real-world national security applications.
Okay, that's all very impressive, but I have to admit, I'm a bit apprehensive about the potential downsides of all this. I mean, we're talking about incredibly powerful technology being made widely accessible. What's to stop someone from using it for, well, less than noble purposes?
That's a valid concern, and it's a debate that's happening right now in the AI community. Some experts argue that these open-source AI models are inherently more vulnerable to misuse. I mean, anyone can modify the code, potentially removing safety features or adapting it for harmful applications.
Yeah, I read a report in Just Security about how Chinese researchers, including some with ties to the People's Liberation Army, have already used Llama for military purposes. It's a bit unsettling, to say the least.
It definitely highlights the potential risks associated with open source AI and the need to, carefully consider how to mitigate those risks. But it's also important to recognize that restricting access to AI might not be a viable long-term strategy.
Why is that? Wouldn't it be safer to keep this kind of technology under tight control?
Even with closed models, determined individuals or organizations can still potentially reverse engineer them. Think of it like trying to keep a secret recipe locked away, but someone figures out how to replicate it by analyzing the final dish.
So even if the U.S. tries to keep a tight lid on AI development, other countries might still find ways to catch up, potentially through techniques like model distillation, which I admit I'm not entirely sure I understand.
Well, think of it as a way of extracting the essential knowledge from a closed model without actually having access to the original code. It's like tasting a dish and then figuring out the recipe based on the flavors and ingredients you can identify.
That's actually a really helpful analogy. So even if you try to control access to AI, determined actors might still find ways to get their hands on it, potentially putting the U.S. at a disadvantage.
Exactly. And then you have to consider that China is already investing heavily in its own open source AI ecosystem. Trying to shut ourselves off from this global trend might actually hinder innovation and, cede ground to our competitors.
So it's a dilemma, isn't it? Trying to control access to AI might actually backfire and give other countries an edge.
It's a complex issue, no easy answers. There are valid arguments on both sides of the debate, but one thing is clear. Open source AI is here to stay, and it's going to have a profound impact on the global landscape, whether we like it or not.
This is all incredibly fascinating. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. We're not just talking about some niche tech issue. This is about how AI will shape the world, and open source is right at the heart of that conversation.
You've hit the nail on the head. We're on the cusp of a technological revolution, and understanding these dynamics is crucial for everyone, regardless of their technical expertise. In an increasingly AI-driven world, knowing the difference between open source and closed models and grasping the implications of each approach is going to be essential.
So whether you're a tech enthusiast or just someone trying to stay informed about the future, this is a conversation you need to be a part of. And this deep dive is just scratching the surface. Stay tuned, because there's so much more to explore.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We've been unpacking this whole world of open source AI, and I'm still processing everything we talked about in the last part. It's incredible how fast this technology is evolving, and the decisions being made today will definitely have ripple effects for years to come.
That's exactly why it's so important to understand these issues. It's not just about code and algorithms. It's about the future we're building, and the choices we make about AI development, regulation, they're going to impact our societies, economies, and our security. Yeah, that quote from Mark Zuckerberg about open source closing the gap with closed AI models really stuck with me. If that's true, it really changes the game.
It does. For a long time, we kind of assumed that the most advanced AI would be developed in secret by companies with a ton of resources, hidden away from public view.
Like OpenAI and Google, with their massive research teams and billions in funding.
Exactly. But Meta's argument is that open source development, with its emphasis on collaboration and shared knowledge, can actually lead to faster innovation and better results.
It's like the old saying, two heads are better than one, but on a global scale. You're harnessing the collective intelligence of developers worldwide.
Precisely. By making the code freely available, open source AI allows developers and researchers around the world to contribute their expertise, identify vulnerabilities, fix them, and build upon each other's work. It's a much more dynamic and responsive approach.
That makes total sense. It's like this massive, crowdsourced brain trust working together to push the boundaries of AI. And the speed at which these open models are evolving is remarkable. Zuckerberg even claims that Llama 3 is already competitive with the most advanced closed models, even leading in some areas.
It's a pretty impressive feat. It suggests that open source AI is no longer just an alternative. It's a legitimate contender in what some are calling the AI race.
But it's not just a race for bragging rights, is it? This has real-world implications for power, influence, and national security.
Absolutely. AI is quickly becoming a critical factor in everything from economic competitiveness to military capabilities. Remember what we discussed earlier about AI's link to economic output and innovation? In a world where technological superiority is increasingly important, open source AI could be a game changer.
It's like having a key that unlocks a whole new level of potential for countries and organizations that might not have had the resources to develop such advanced AI on their own.
Exactly. It could empower smaller nations, foster innovation in developing countries, and even challenge the dominance of those big tech giants.
Yeah.
We could see a much more decentralized and diverse AI landscape.
But wouldn't this also increase the risk of AI falling into the wrong hands? If anyone can access and modify the code, couldn't that make it easier for bad actors to create harmful applications?
That's the flip side of the coin, and it's a serious concern that we can't ignore. There's a real possibility that open source AI could be used to develop things like autonomous weapon systems, launch sophisticated disinformation campaigns, or even facilitate large-scale cyber attacks.
Those scenarios are definitely unsettling. It's like we're standing at a crossroads, with each path forward offering its own set of potential benefits and risks.
Exactly. On one hand, you have this incredible potential for unprecedented innovation, collaboration, and democratization of technology.
Hmm.
On the other, you have the very real potential for misuse, instability, and conflict.
It's a tough choice. Do we prioritize control and security, even if it means potentially slowing down progress and giving up some of the benefits of open source? Or do we embrace the risks in the hopes of fostering a more open, collaborative, and innovative AI ecosystem?
That's the question policymakers and tech leaders are wrestling with right now. And unfortunately, there are no easy answers. There are strong arguments on both sides.
So what's the solution? Is there a way to balance the benefits of open source AI with the need for security and control? Can we have the best of both worlds?
That's the million-dollar question. Some experts believe the key lies in developing those robust ethical guidelines, international norms, and regulatory frameworks that encourage responsible AI development while still allowing for innovation and collaboration.
It sounds like we need a global conversation about AI, one that involves not just governments and tech companies, but also ethicists, researchers, and the public at large.
Absolutely. This isn't just a technical issue, it's a societal one. We need to decide what kind of AI future we want to create and how we're going to get there together.
And those decisions will have huge consequences for everyone, whether they're tech savvy or not.
That's why it's so important for everyone to be informed about these issues. The choices we make about AI today will shape the world we live in tomorrow.
Okay, so we've established that open source AI is a powerful force with the potential to reshape the technological landscape. But let's get back to Meta for a second. What exactly are they hoping to achieve by making Llama available to the U.S. government?
Well, according to their statements, they see this as a way to support the prosperity and security of the United States and its allies.
So it's framed as a patriotic move. They believe that open source AI can help America maintain its technological edge and strengthen its position on the global stage.
That's definitely the message they're putting out there. They're also arguing that open source AI can benefit the public sector, enabling discoveries, driving efficiency, and improving the delivery of public services.
So it's not just about national security, then. They're also pushing the idea that open source AI can be used for good to address those societal challenges and improve people's lives.
Exactly. And they're partnering with a variety of organizations, including nonprofits and government agencies, to explore those applications.
That's interesting. It suggests that Meta is trying to position itself as a responsible leader in the AI field, not just a company focused on profit.
They're definitely trying to shape the narrative around open source AI, highlighting its potential for positive impact.
But let's be real, Meta is a business, and they're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. There must be some strategic advantages for them as well.
Of course. By making Llama available to the U.S. government, Meta gains access to a massive network of potential users, including some of the most sophisticated and well-funded organizations in the world.
That's a huge opportunity for them to gather data, refine their models, and establish Llama as the go-to AI platform for government and national security applications.
Precisely. It's a win-win for Meta. They get to promote their technology, gain valuable insights, and potentially shape the future of AI development.
But it's not just about Meta, is it? Other companies are also hopping on the open source AI bandwagon.
You're right. We talked about Oracle, Scale AI, and Lockheed Martin earlier. They're all using Llama to develop applications for various government agencies.
And this Technology Magazine article highlights how Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure are hosting Llama models on their secure cloud solutions, specifically for sensitive government data.
It's clear that open source AI is no longer just a niche trend. It's a rapidly growing movement that's attracting interest from some of the biggest players in the tech industry.
And this shift towards open source is happening at a time when the entire AI landscape is going through a major transformation.
Exactly. We're seeing this convergence of factors. The rapid advancement of AI technology, the growing awareness of its potential impact, and the intensifying competition between nations and companies.
It's like a perfect storm brewing in the tech world.
And the outcome of this storm is far from certain. Will open source AI become the dominant model, or will closed systems prevail? Will we be able to harness AI's power for good, or will it be used for harmful purposes?
These are questions that will define the coming decades.
And they're questions we need to start addressing now.
Okay, so we've explored the potential benefits and risks of open source AI, looked at how it's being used in the national security context, and discussed the motivations of companies like Meta. But there's another crucial aspect to this conversation that we haven't touched on yet, the question of regulation.
That's a critical point and one that deserves its own deep dive. We'll be back in the final part of our episode to explore the regulatory landscape surrounding open source AI, from existing frameworks to potential future developments.
Join us then as we continue our journey into the fascinating and complex world of open source AI. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been on this fascinating journey, exploring all the ins and outs of open source AI, its potential to reshape national security, and that whole debate about its implications.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic full of twists and turns, isn't it? We've talked about the technical stuff, the strategic implications, the potential benefits, and of course, the risks.
And now it's time to tackle a crucial aspect that honestly sometimes gets a little overshadowed by the excitement of this whole new technology thing, the ethical
You're
considerations.
absolutely right. As open source AI becomes more powerful and integrated into our lives, we really need to have serious discussions about how to make sure it's used responsibly, ethically.
I think a lot of people hear AI ethics and they immediately picture robots taking over the world, like in those sci-fi movies. But it's a lot more nuanced than that, right?
It is. AI ethics is about tackling those real-world challenges that pop up when we create machines capable of making decisions that impact human lives. It's about ensuring that AI systems are fair, unbiased, transparent, and accountable. Making sure they're actually doing good.
And those challenges become even more, well, challenging in the context of open source AI, where anyone can access the code. It makes it so much harder to control how it's used and who has access to it.
Precisely. When anyone can tinker with the code, it raises concerns about potential misuse, unintended consequences, and amplifying existing biases. It's a real concern.
So where do we even start to address these ethical challenges? Is it as simple as telling developers to be good, or is there more to it?
It definitely needs a more, well, a multifaceted approach, I guess you could say. One key aspect is fostering a culture of responsible AI development within the open source community. That means encouraging developers to really think critically about the potential impact of their work, to prioritize fairness and transparency, and to build safeguards into their models right from the start.
So it's about baking those ethical considerations into the whole development process, not just as an afterthought.
Exactly. And that requires education, awareness raising, and developing those clear ethical guidelines and best practices that developers can actually follow. Something concrete.
But guidelines and best practices are only part of the solution, right? Are there technical solutions that can help address those ethical risks associated with open source AI?
Absolutely. There's a whole field of research focused on developing AI systems that are not only powerful, but also ethical and trustworthy by design. This includes things like tools for spotting and fixing bias in AI models, techniques for making AI decisions more transparent and explainable, and mechanisms for ensuring accountability when something goes wrong.
So it's not just about telling developers to be ethical, it's about giving them the tools and resources they need to build AI systems that reflect our values.
Exactly. And this is where collaboration between researchers, ethicists, policymakers, and the open source community becomes so important. We need to work together to create a robust ecosystem that supports the development of responsible and trustworthy open source AI.
This all makes sense, but I also keep thinking about the practical side of things. In the world of technology, things move so fast. Innovation often outpaces regulation. So how do we ensure that ethical considerations aren't just forgotten in the rush to develop the next big AI thing?
That's a really good point, and it highlights the need for ongoing dialogue and adaptation.
Yeah.
We can't just set it and forget it. We need to be constantly evaluating the ethical implications of these new AI developments, revising our guidelines and best practices, and creating regulatory frameworks that can actually keep pace with the technology. It's a moving target for sure.
It sounds like a real challenge, but also a necessary one. If we want open source AI to actually benefit society, we have to be thoughtful and proactive about addressing these ethical challenges.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the responsibility for ethical AI development doesn't just fall on the shoulders of developers or policymakers. It's a shared responsibility that extends to all of us who use and interact with these technologies.
That's an important reminder. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of AI. We need to stay informed, engaged, and be willing to ask those tough questions about what these powerful technologies mean for us.
Exactly. The future of AI isn't set in stone. It's something we're actively creating through the choices we make, the values we prioritize, and the conversations we have. It's up to all of us.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener, and I hope our listeners feel more informed and ready to engage in these important conversations about the future of open source AI. It's a big deal, no doubt about it.
It's been great sharing these insights with you and with our audience. And remember, as we navigate this uncharted territory, the most important thing is to keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep that dialogue going.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of open source AI. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shaping the future you want to see.